Call to order the Thursday, November 11th, 2021 meeting of the Clive City Council. The clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Sirksina.
Here.
Council members Klein.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
McCoy.
Here.
Judkins.
Here.
And Weaver.
Here.
Nice to see everybody present and accounted for. Nice to have all of you with us. Please stand and join us for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all. I want to take a moment and just acknowledge and express appreciation for Veterans Day today. We have 3 veterans in our midst that I know of. Anyway, Council Member Weaver and Council Member Klein and Madam Council Christina, all serving us, and there may be others here that are veterans as well and that are serving. So thank you for your service and what a great day. Alrighty, next item is approval of the agenda. I'm not aware of any changes.
Move approval. Second.
By John, seconded by Eric. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Okay, the next item is citizens presentation. This is where anybody in our audience can address the council on an item that is not on the agenda. Is there anybody here to do so? Or Pete online? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record if you would.
Evening, Lila Starr, 1614 Northwest 99th Court, Clive.
Good evening, Lila.
Just
Congratulations on your service as well.
thank you. Thank you very much. That's what brings me this evening. Congratulations to all our newly elected council members, and very pleased to be elected to this school board for the West Des Moines School Board. Thank you to Mayor-elect Edwards for reaching out with some congratulations and a request to maybe collaborate. Just wanted to say that I'd be very interested in anything that we can do to collaborate going forward between the school board and the city council. Civic engagement being important and all. That's all I wanted to say.
That's a great message. How could we say no to that? So thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate that. Congratulations again. Is there anybody else here to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? And if online, make yourself known to Pete so he can plug you in.
Yep, the best way to catch me is to use the chat function on Zoom. You can chat at Pete DeCook, or you can use the raise hand function on Zoom. It's at the bottom of your screen in the black bar. Click on the participant tab. And when your window pops up, you should see the raise hand icon. Mayor, I don't see any hands going up.
All righty, Pete. Thank you. We'll move to the next item, which is consent items.
Move the resolution.
Your Honor, can we pull item AW off the consent items for further consideration, please, for discussion?
Move the resolution with the deletion of AW for further discussion.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Any other discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0. Councilmember Klein.
Yeah, I'd just like some further clarification on that, Richard or Matt. Typically with these, did we have an RFP on this?
No, we did not have an RFP on this because there's such a limited pool of companies that do this work for libraries. Typically in the past, I believe the prior director, Todd Seaman, actually undertook most of this in-house because of the capacity of time to be able to do that at the time. Currently, with all the items that we have on our budget, we felt that in order to get it done for the accreditation, that it was best to work with an outside organization.
The state of Iowa did it 5 years ago.
With Todd.
So they oversaw the project then?
No, they just provided some assistance for a few different items. I wasn't here, so I don't know exactly what they provided regarding that. But I think it was something that was an opportunity at the time and staff time allowed to take most of it on.
I just wonder why we didn't bid that out. That's pretty typical for these type of projects and working with consultants to send out a request for pricing just to make sure that we're comparing apples and apples and we'll get fair bids. This is the only company in the United States that does this type of work?
We reached out to multiple different companies and it was the only person that was able to call us back.
Okay.
I would have a question. I think I understand that. We're talking the $18,000 professional services, correct?
Yep.
So it would be within your,
It would have been, it wasn't, it could have gone on the consent agenda, so I didn't use my authorization on this one. It would have, I normally could have done that though.
thank you.
And I'm satisfied with the explanation. It's just not typical that we don't bid these out
Mhm.
just to have a fair process to allow whether it's individuals. But I understand the explanation on that. And I would move approval on item AW.
Second.
Moved by Eric, seconded by John, to move AW. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, with the council, please vote. Passes 5-0. Okay, next item is a presentation. Roxanne. We have a process improvement that we're going to talk about. Administrative Services Department. So the presentation's done.
That's how efficient we're going to be tonight.
That was tremendous, Roxanne. Thank
That's a
you.
process improvement, Pete, right there.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity this evening to share with you our process improvement. As you recall, it started a few years back with the electronic time cards with a MyPay system. We went from MyPay then to the City of Clive benefit portal. And on that portal, we had all our plan documents as far as our health insurance, our dental, vision, and such. So instead of carrying around the big binders anymore and killing trees, we had that all in a portal that people could go to as far as just through a link. Well, then our broker, True North, brought to us last year a tool called Workforce Junction. And through that tool, then employees are able to go in to, once again, another portal and enroll themselves into their benefits. With that, then they found that we have had a lot fewer enrollments to correct because employees can themselves see that the address is correct, their phone number is correct, their child's name or birth date is correct and that. So that has really helped as far as that efficiency working with the carriers because the information goes directly from the portal to our carrier then as far as for the employees' enrollment. You can see this stack of papers here. It kind of reminds me of the old days when the brokers would come in with the enrollment packets and they lug these big boxes in. And that's what our desks usually looked like with after 2 or 3 of those enrollment meetings. But
Roxanne, I'm doing something wrong because my desk still looks like that.
So it's been great for employees to be able to self-monitor as far as when they enroll. They're able to make changes as far as when they have life events, such as a marriage or a birth of a child. They can go into the portal once again, and then that directly shoots to the carrier. So great efficiency with that. And not only has it been for our employees, because this portal is available 24/7, so spouses can walk through it with the employee. And also too, we have now retirees out of state, and we also use this portal for the retirees to enroll in their benefits. And so it's been beneficial all around for everybody. And of course, then to appeal to some of our younger employees, then we do have the option of the mobile app, so to say. So it is mobile friendly with that also. So very appealing to some of our younger employees with that. Along with that, of course, some of us older employees are very interested in what this is costing us. So this is another part of the tool. As you enroll, then it shows you what your monthly or pay benefit will be as far as per month, per pay. What am I going to be paying for this selection I am making in my benefits? So that's been a great tool for the employee, and here again, the retiree. So as you go along in your enrollment, you always know where you stand as far as what your contribution for that benefit will be. And then, of course, we wouldn't be much of a tool if there wouldn't be some advantages to the administrative services and finance department. And part of that is the tool, as far as the reporting tool that we get from this. It will let us know as far as when changes have been made in benefits, what people are enrolled in. And then if there are adjustments made to our payroll system or adjustments needed to make that correction or adjustment to the benefit. And of course, as with all formats, there were a few challenges as we worked through this, but I think the vast majority of our employees had a positive experience during the open enrollment period. And then the open enrollment was when we kicked it off, but we continue to use that then for our new employees, and we will continue on. And I think as more people become comfortable with the tool that we're using, I think it'll be easier and easier for people, our employees and retirees. Any questions?
Council, Ted, go ahead.
So, excuse me, Roxanne, is this just a service that True North is providing us, or we're not licensing any software or anything like that for this, right?
We are paying a fee.
We're paying a fee.
Yes.
That's part of their services, but
Yes.
it's not any software that we're actually licensing. Then this is
That
all
is correct.
that they're maintaining and enhancing and upgrading
Yeah.
and all that.
Yes, and they have other clients using this platform also.
Very good.
Roxanne, how much is that fee in comparison to cost savings involved for the city of Clive?
It was pretty substantial that we felt, just due to the time savings, the administrative time that we were saving, going from the 110 hours to approximately 20 hours on the open enrollment cycle alone.
So if you had to do a comparison from a cost analysis, the cost based on purchase and use of license of this versus time spent from a dollars perspective, how much do you think it's saving the city? Understanding with the time perspective saving.
Ooh, I think we had that figured up at one point in time, Joyce. I'm sorry, I'm not recalling that number. I know we had it figured up when we were proposing
you
it
can get back to
initially.
me.
Yeah, I sure will. Yeah, no problem.
The goal, council member, is not to stump our presenter.
No problem. We'll get back to it.
Other questions, council?
Just a quick question on the My Benefits, the original piece, right, that you went away from. Are you still utilizing that? I know that in my day job, we have this similar situation. We still utilize that first piece as a recruiting tool, actually, because you can let generic users.
We do, and in fact, it's a link we send out quite often. So especially people are trying to compare benefits from one community to another.
Right.
Definitely,
Oh, good.
yes.
And that's still that added value by True North
Right.
allowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, right. That is no cost.
You know, Roxanne, as we look to always hire the best and the brightest for Clive labor force, this is certainly another one of those benefits that from a offering to a new employee, it has to be another solid advantage for the city of Clive and hiring individuals. So
Right.
glad to see this.
Roxanne, nice job.
Thank
And
you.
team, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got multiple action items this evening and several public hearings that we're going to start off with. The first public hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the proposed Hickman Road and Berkshire Parkway / Waco Place traffic signalization project. Jim, say that 5 times really fast.
You did fine.
Matthew, did we post appropriate public notice?
Public notice was published in the Des Moines Register on October 27th.
Thank you, Matthew. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. We received bids last week for the traffic signalization project on Hickman Road and Berkshire Parkway that we've been discussing here recently. At the end of the letting, only one responsive bid was received. I'll speak to that in a little more detail here in a minute, but based on the dollar amount of that bid in relation to the engineer's estimate, our recommendation tonight would be to reject the bid and relet the project. We'll be working with our design engineer, Snyder and Associates. to make some minor plan revisions and have that back in front of you in early 2022. As noted in my memo, there were 3 other proposals submitted, and they did not acknowledge receipt of an addendum that had been issued, providing more clarification on the project. It's not unusual to get that information out, but they did not acknowledge receipt, so those bids were not considered for the purposes of awarding the contract here tonight.
Questions, council? Ted?
So Jim, can you clarify that a little bit? Is that something on our end that we didn't communicate properly? I mean, because for 3 of them to not do it, seems like that was more of a communication problem.
Yeah, there's a couple things kind of working against us in this regard, one generally and one more specific to this project. Generally, it is a lot more difficult recently to track the plan holders list, to know who's looking at the plans. Used to be contractors would come in and you'd hand them a set of plans and spec, you'd write down their information, you knew who you were dealing with on that. We send them now out electronically to plan rooms, and there's a lot of different eyes on it, a lot of different ways that folks can start looking at that. So in that regard, it's difficult to know and keep an accurate list. We did what we typically do in working with Snyder. When we went to send out the addendum, reached out to the people we knew were on the list and got that information to them. The other thing specific to this project that made it a little more difficult is obviously the majority of this work is traffic signalization related. Those firms, for whatever reason, typically do not like to be the prime contractor on these projects. So those were the folks that we were having most of the conversations with. We knew who had the plans. At the end of the day, as the letting approach, they turned their quotes in to the folks who were doing the sidewalk and concrete work. And they were not on our radar at all as far as being plan holders list. In fact, in talking with one of the firms, they had literally picked up the plans that morning, just got the quote, folded that in, and submitted the proposal. Certainly on both sides, there's more work that we can do to make sure that doesn't happen again and get that information out a little bit better, but it was kind of a unique set of circumstances after we looked back on how we got to this point.
So do we have concerns with the price of basically everything going up, that we're going to have higher bids in the spring than, maybe a missed window of opportunity here?
We'll still be out in a good time frame in January. This did get us a chance to look at least some numbers and talk with signal suppliers. Snyder's estimate was just under 500,000. As we go through and look at that again, we'll be talking with them about revising that. I would suspect that they haven't finalized that yet, but I would suspect that number will rise. It'll probably be closer to 600,000 than 500,000 when we go back out. But again, that's just, again, a lot of unknowns heading into this bidding time frame, and in talking with those folks, it's like everything else, those steel poles and mast arms, the prices of those things aren't going down right now.
Right.
Other questions?
We can close the public hearing.
Second. Moved by John, seconded by Eric to close public hearing. Before we do, is there anybody here to speak on this item, either in person or online, Pete?
And if you would like to participate online, you can use the chat function, or you can use the raise hand function on Zoom. Mayor, I do not see any hands going up.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Seeing nothing further, will the council please vote to close public hearing? Passes 5-0.
Move the resolution approving the plans and specs.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Ted. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0.
Move to receive the bids.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Ted. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0.
Move the resolution rejecting the bids.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Ted. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0. Jim, thank you. It looks like we have an opportunity here.
Yep, we'll be back.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, the next action item, public hearing, is for the 2021-22 sanitary sewer lining program. And Matthew, did we post appropriate public notice?
Public notice was published October 28th.
Thank you, Matthew. Jeff?
Mayor, Council, good evening. We're here tonight to discuss our annual sanitary sewer lining program. We have received 6 bids on the project, one of which, the low bid being a little bit below our engineer's estimate, about 3.8%, 3.6%. AccuJet is a firm that has done the cleaning work for us before. Last couple of years, they've started lining. They have not lined for us, but they will be lining for us this year. So willing to give it a try. Talked to them, and they're, like I said, been very good to work with on the cleaning side. So we're excited to be working with them.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions, council?
Jeff, any concerns with AccuJet with the lining aspect? I know we've worked with a number of these other firms in the past, and there's a substantial difference in the bids right there. Any concerns on your part?
There's always concern anytime someone's, they've been doing it for 2 years. We're not their first customer. It's just they haven't done it for us. So understanding that, we feel good that they will be able to complete the work.
Other questions for Jeff? Council?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric to close the public hearing. Before we do, is there anybody here to speak on this item, either in person or online, Pete?
There, I do not see any hands going up or any chats.
Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0 to close the public hearing.
Move the resolution approving plans and specs.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0.
Move to receive the bids.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0.
Move the resolution awarding the contract to AccuJet for $189,042.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, the third public hearing is regarding voluntary annexation of Warrior Lane. And Matthew, do we post appropriate public notice?
Yes, notice was published October 18th.
Thank you, Matthew. Amanda, good evening.
Good evening. So tonight we are talking about a voluntary annexation of 9.1 acres of land. It is actually a 100-foot wide strip of land along Warrior Lane. So that is primarily either currently right-of-way or will, with future development, be dedicated as right-of-way. 60 foot of that will be Warrior Lane. About 40 feet of that then is the private property, front yards, side yards. There are no structures and no population within the area we're annexing, but this will clean up our boundary with Waukee. Waukee is simultaneously making their application for annexation for 5 parcels on the west side of Warrior Lane. In order to not create any islands within the county, we're having to do this process together. So after tonight's resolution, if it's approved, staff will make application tomorrow to the City Development Board, which is a state level board. And we should be on the December 8th agenda. There's a 30-day waiting period following their written filing from the CDB, the City Development Board. So the annexation would be finalized mid-January, which will allow us to finally issue a couple building permits. We have not received plans on yet, but 2 of the lots that were final platted in Shadow Creek Plat 6 are held up by this annexation. The county did allow us to final plat them, but we're not able to issue any permits yet since they are partially in the county. And for the future maintenance of the road, it will fall under our existing 28E agreements that we have with Waukee. So I believe that is still being determined on exactly who will do which maintenance.
Questions for Amanda, council?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
It's moved by Eric, seconded by Ted to close the public hearing. Before we do, is there anybody here to speak on this item, either in person or online?
Now I do not see any hands going up.
Seeing none, will the council please vote?
So suspenseful.
Passes 5-0 to close the public hearing.
Move the resolution approving voluntary annexation of certain property.
Second.
Moved by Eric, seconded by Ted. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0. Thank you, Amanda. Good to see us getting that done. More to come, right? We've got you up here for the next one too.
Yes.
So action item number 4 is a site plan amendment for Mr. Carwash, 8727 University Avenue.
Yeah, so Pete, I don't know if we can screen share that or if I printed it as well, but
You can use the document camera.
okay, great. Okay, so as the mayor said, we have a site plan amendment for primarily a facade update at the Mr. Carwash located at University and Northwest 86th Street. This is in front of you guys tonight primarily because they are making some changes to the roof line, which in our zoning ordinance would come before you, would not be a staff approval. The primary change is right in this area. They have like a skylight type design. You can see on their proposal that they are just extending the parapet there to kind of make it a more modern style roof line. The materials they're using are the existing brick, which covers most of the building, and they're adding some ACM and aluminum panel accents to kind of make the facade just more modern and fit with their current branding. There are just a minor change to the landscaping plan that staff is waiting on that as you have in your packet, which I have here tonight as well. The applicant is bringing the site into conformance with their previously approved landscaping plan from the initial construction, which requires them to plant 3 trees. However, where they've shown them on their plan tonight actually conflicts with the overhead electric pole. So they're just going to scoot them this way a little bit and plant them more like right here on the site. So we just haven't received that final revision yet. Unfortunately, their designer has been in the hospital with COVID. So it's a little delay getting those final plans, but that would be our only condition tonight is just on receiving that revised landscaping plan. Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the site plan with that revised landscape plan. So with that, staff would recommend approval if you have no questions.
Questions, council?
Nice to see some reinvestment in that university corridor right there for businesses.
Agree. Mike?
2 questions. Silly, maybe one, when you move those 3 trees closer, that turn there is already a little tricky for some people to merge. But sightline anyways. And then 2, those additions to the building with the steel, did you say? Does it somewhat match across the street or look, or the Jimmy Johns we made up, we had them put up kind of the rain or
the coloring will certainly match better than the blue that is heavily featured today. I'm trying to recall if there's any of the paneling on the other buildings quite in this way. I don't think it would exactly match, but it's certainly more in conformance just to get that blue out of there and have a more neutral, modern look.
Thank you. That will look nice.
Yeah, other questions? Appreciate Eric's point. This is, it's good to see when I first came on the council in 2003, they were upgrading. And it's nice to see continuous investment in these properties. John, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I move approval of site plan amendment.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Susan. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0. Amanda, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, action item number 5 is a resolution approving the annual financial audit report FY 2021 with presentation by Brad Thiessen and Edie Bailey, and Joyce is going to lead us.
Yes, good evening. And we have for your approval tonight, the annual financial audit report. So this is our second year with Eide Bailey and still have lots of good things to say about them. Brad and his team are just outstanding to work with, and they are a great resource to us throughout the year as we have different situations come up. We can bounce things off them and find out the best way, best practices on how to deal with stuff. So have nothing but good things to say about him, and the process went well this year. So I'll quit talking and let Brad talk to you. So
Good evening, Brad.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
You betcha.
Great. Okay. As part of the audit, I guess I'd always kind of like to run through the financial statements and just kind of give you an overview of how those work. And then at the end, we'll kind of talk a little bit about the findings and everything. So if I roll through the financial statements here pretty quick, if you turn to page 2, if you have them in front of you, it talks about our opinion on the financial statements. And so there's the big thing I like to talk about here is the responsibilities of the different entities. The city is responsible for providing the financial information and presenting it in accordance with the cash basis of accounting. They're also responsible for internal controls and maintaining and developing internal controls on a periodic basis. Our responsibility for the financial statements is really just to give an opinion on the financial statements in accordance with 2 different governing bodies. So we have generally accepted auditing standards, which is governed by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. We also have another set of auditing standards too, since the city falls under Chapter 11 of the Code of Iowa. We also have to audit within the framework of generally accepted government auditing standards too, which is governed by the Comptroller General of the United States of America. So 2 sort of similar audit standards kind of working together with some differences. With generally accepted government auditing standards, they require a little more government background, a little more continuing professional education requirements on a yearly basis. So a little more independence requirements as well too. So, and then if you go to the next page of the opinion, it kind of talks about having an unmodified opinion on the financial statement. So that's basically like a clean financial statement opinion. So we kind of agree with the way that the information is presented by the city. As you go forward in the document too, I always kind of like to talk about the MD&A, Management's Discussion and Analysis. It starts on page 5 and goes through page 11. It's really a very good read if you're kind of trying to look to see, okay, what is different from last year to this year. It does a good job of highlighting certain transaction classes, account balances, why they went up or down from 2020 to 2021. So I always kind of say, if there's one part of the financial statement that you're going to read, that would be it. I always encourage reading the whole thing too, but if there was just one part that you want to read, it'd be pages 5 through 11. So then as we get into the basic financial statements on pages 12 through 16, it kind of highlights the different funds of the city and the different activities of the city. So basically, the city is sort of segregated into 2 different types of activities. You have your general governmental activities and your business type activities. Your government activities are your police and fire and public works and all that sort of thing. And then your business type activities are the activities you're sort of running to sort of try to break even, or your charge for services trying to, break even or make a profit to some extent. So like your water, sewer, those types of items. And they're further broken down into the different funds and the later part of those basic financial statements too. The notes to the financial statements are on page 17 through 41, and these have a little more detail on the long-term debt of the city and changes from year to year. They also break down certain disclosures on pension and commitments and contingencies and that sort of thing too. So a lot of good information there. And then you can get into the required supplementary information, which is on pages 42 through 47. So this is where your budget to actual report comes in. You can look at the different functions of the city and see if they were under budget, over budget, that sort of thing. And then there's some combining financial statements too, on pages 48 through 55. And finally, I guess the last thing I always like to talk about is the schedule of findings and responses on page 58. And so this is kind of where there's a difference between normal auditing standards or just generally accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards. So government auditing standards requires us to put a report at the end of the financial statements, which is publicly available, which kind of talks about our review of the internal controls of the city and sort of defining internal controls into 3 different types of classes. You have, sort of like material weaknesses would be your major issues. Any significant deficiencies would be underneath that. And then you have sort of like your underlying control deficiencies of the city. So as part of our review of the financial statements, we go through the account balances, transaction classes of the city, and sort of try to identify any sort of segregation of duties or control issues that we can. And the one thing that, we'll probably highlight is that we had no findings over any internal control issues this year surrounding the financial statement process for the city. So definitely a feather in the cap to the city, no issues there. If you remember, I think on last year's report, we talked a little bit about the difference between a material weakness and significant deficiency. And we kind of talked about having one financial statement comment last year related to an adjusting a journal entry that we made when we came on board as auditors for the city. But then this year, everything was remediated. So no issues, no findings there. And then finally, the last part of that schedule of findings and responses is any sort of statutory items that we're required to report by Chapter 11 of the Code of Iowa. So the state auditor's office of the state kind of puts together some criteria to report on certain conditions of the city in terms of budget versus actual, or TIP irregularities and that sort of thing. And so we've included our report at the end of the report there too, and did not have any findings in those areas either. So I guess I will end on that note and ask if you guys have any questions for me at all.
Council questions, Eric?
Brad, looks like a great audit right here, and really appreciate your work and the work of Joyce and your staff. Doesn't sound like there's any watch or concerns over anything that you went over. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. One of the things we always look at from an internal control standpoint is segregation of duties. And since we have so many different elements the city's into in terms of, spending money on public works and police and fire and all that stuff, there's so much going on, but we did not find any issues where we thought there were any segregation of duties issues that would sort of elevate to the level that they would need to be reported to the city council or anything like that. So no, I would say no concerns from our standpoint.
Thank you.
So Brad, in other words, a glowing report.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. That's what I was looking for. Okay. It's better if you say it than if I say it, right?
With that, I move the resolution.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion?
Great job, Joyce.
Yep.
Thank you.
Seeing
Thanks,
none, will the
Brad.
council please vote? And absolutely great job, Joy. And team.
Yeah.
Brad, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That passes 5-0. Brad, appreciate everything. Thank you for shepherding us through the process.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Okay, you too. Thank you. Joyce, again, thank you, and team.
Brad just texted me and said Joyce needs to come do it again next year.
Yeah, well, to respond in the affirmative. You'd have some support on that one. Action item number 6. With that note, resolution approving the professional services agreement, University Boulevard Flood Mitigation Planning, Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated, NTE, for $149,860. And Doug.
Thank you. Before you tonight is a proposed contract with Stantec to complete the University Boulevard neighborhood flood mitigation planning exercise. As we have previously discussed, we are now in a position of saying that this particular area, in terms of its flood risk, needs to be addressed. So the activity that would be accomplished with this planning process is to more fully refine the opportunities to reduce flood risk, whether or not that is a continuation or expansion of the buyout program or other structural or non-structural mitigation activities that could be accomplished in this area that would be cost benefit allowed under FEMA's regulations. So our purpose is to work through the alternatives, get to a point of having clarity around the preferred mitigation solution, which in our case will be principally aligned with the notion of retreating from the buyout or from the floodplain space itself. But we need to evaluate those other alternatives to have a basis of a comparison when we get to the point of making a formal request to the federal government. So we'll complete that part of the process, be in a position to know a little more around what types of opportunities we would have for partnerships, whether or not that is through the BRIC application process or whether or not it's through flood mitigation assistance or whether or not it's through some other form of hazard mitigation grant funding that we might be available to use for this area. The work itself is going to be completed in a relatively rapid time period. We will get started here really after Thanksgiving holiday, get a lot of the preliminary work completed in December, and then be in a position to really work specifically with property owners after the first of the year, get that consensus around the strategy for moving forward with this, give them all the information that they need and start to fill in some of the gaps around the schedules and opportunities that are available to those folks. We'll get that work completed by spring, be in a position to finish this thing up in late spring and early summer. And then that will give us a decision point to make from there as to whether or not we're ready to pursue the funding opportunities that then would need to be prepared for this time next year. So again, quite a bit of work to be accomplished. In this case, we are very fortunate to have a funding partner for the activity. We did receive some hazard mitigation funding from last year to advance this work. Basically, the city is picking up about $22,000 of the roughly $150,000 for work that's being completed on this project. We did go through a solicitation process asking for consultant services. We did feel ultimately that Stantec provides us with the best opportunity to get to the point where we're able to ask competently for assistance from our various funding partners. So at this point, we feel comfortable with the proposed scope. The contract that is before you is for $149,860, which is just slightly under the available funding within the previously received grant. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Councilman? Eric?
Doug, will this scope of this address the areas that we have right now that we've already purchased and opportunities and go over options for us on how we want to treat the land that we've already acquired in the flood prone buyout program?
Yes, a lot of that work, as you're aware, is being conceived within the district plan. The idea that this space principally should be used for an open space or restoration of the floodplain itself. We will have the opportunity with this effort to evaluate what opportunities might exist to reduce flood risk by, say, storing water in this space, whether or not that's in a basin or whether or not that's in a wetland space or whether or not it's a remeander of the creek itself. To some degree, the benefits associated with those improvements principally are to our neighbors, Windsor Heights. But why we're interested in investigating that is because although many of these properties are really unable to be mitigated in terms of their flood risk just because of the depths of flooding that's going to occur. It is possible that some of the properties, principally along the north boundary of the flood boundary itself, when we're talking about maybe only a foot or 2 feet of a flood inundation, if we can somehow store or somehow kind of reduce the inundation potential around that boundary, those types of things, ponds, wetlands, stream meanders, may give us that incremental benefit that would suggest that we can either see reinvestment or preserve the properties that are out there. So we'll investigate it a bit, at least to understand what the mitigation benefits would look like. It still is not necessarily going to give you the full picture of what this space might look like in 10 years. That's a whole nother effort once we kind of get to the point of having the land under control.
Other questions?
I'd move a resolution approving professional services agreement.
Second.
It's moved by Ted, seconded by John. Further discussion, Mike?
Yeah, Doug, past 4.3A, can you just give us a little glimpse of the significant, I can read it. Stantec will create a proposed condition model reflecting potential modifications to the railroad bridge located approximately 1,200 feet upstream of 73rd Street. To me, we're saying we're going to propose something to a sovereign nation, and we're spending money on it. For what reason?
So this really kind of goes into the consideration of what are alternatives. From the work that we've done with all of our partners to this point, the idea of fixing the flooding in this area really is not something that is viable. And that's what's led us to this discussion around retreating from the flood buyout or from the floodplain itself. That again is what makes the most sense internally from our perspective. As we move forward to start asking for assistance from FEMA or other partners, they are going to want to make sure that we have fully vetted the alternatives. Is there an alternative that is more cost beneficial than what we're suggesting is the most appropriate action for the city? One of those items is we know the railroad bridge is undersized in terms of passing large flood flows. So it creates backwater, creates some of the flooding in this area.
Trees and hooking onto it.
Back up.
Just the opening of the trestle itself is just smaller than what would otherwise be needed to pass a large flood event. We've done some kind of simple analysis in the past to kind of rule that out as an option. And again, we're not going to spend an enormous amount of time, but we're going to do enough again to have the data to substantiate that the option really isn't viable.
For multiple reasons.
For many reasons. The cost, I mean, just generally speaking, even though we know if we open up the bridge, pass more water through, it will result in some reduction in the flood inundation elevation within the space. Not enough to take many buildings out of the flood risk, but again, maybe on the northern boundary, you could reduce it some. So there is benefit in doing it, although Windsor Heights isn't going to like that, but there would be benefit in our neighborhood. The problem is, again, from a cost benefit analysis, the cost associated with reconstructing a railroad bridge, and in this case, because you're making it bigger, it's got to get taller, and trains don't like significant steep changes in grade. So you got to build this thing really long. It's just not going to pencil out in terms of that cost benefit analysis, but we need to go through the exercise similarly to conceiving of either a wall or levee system. It's not going to make any sense financially, but we need to at least show that we've evaluated the options.
Thank you.
Doug, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0. All right, action item number 7 is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding for Central Iowa Code Consortium. Matt.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before you tonight is a resolution is committing basically city staff time to this collaboration. They are now in the midst of looking at the next code cycle and requesting community participation. We wanted to see, there was, as I mentioned in my memo, just a few things that we wanted to see in terms of maybe some process changes to make things a little bit more efficient. We felt that they've been responsive. The group has been responsive. The executive committee has been responsive to those changes. And we're now comfortable at this time bringing this forward for participation of our staff in the next code cycle. So with that, Your Honor, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I appreciate your leadership on it, Matt. I noticed our friends in Ankeny are not participating. Do you understand why?
I do not.
I'd like to understand why not. Matt, other questions?
I saw that too.
I was going to ask the same question. I mean, other than the answer, because it's Ankeny, I mean, surely they have some reasons why they didn't. I mean,
I've not been advised on what that might be.
All right, well, we'll find out.
Okay.
Move the resolution.
Be nice to know.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote?
Sounds like a Mac follow up.
Passes 5-0. Thank you, Matt. Action item number 8 is proposed ordinance number 1106. This is repealing ordinance number 690 or, for 1999 Wells Fargo addition to the Clive urban renewal area. Joyce.
Yes, good evening again. So this is just a process that you have to go through. This is one of the districts within our large urban renewal area, and its life has expired. They have a 20-year life. So this is the process we have to go through in order to repeal it and then file it with the Polk County Auditor. So that's the same story with Ordinance 1107 as well. We have 2 expiring this year. So
Questions for Joyce, Council?
And it's the intention to suspend the rules?
Yes,
and
sir.
move these
I'm on
through.
this.
Okay.
Move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to this meeting be suspended with respect to ordinance number 1106.
Second.
Moved by Michael, seconded by Susan to suspend the rules. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote?
Practicing all night, Professor.
You still almost blew it.
I was late. I was out in my car reading. Practicing.
Be prepared. Passes 5-0 to suspend the rules.
Move that ordinance number 1106 be considered, placed upon its passage and adopted. I turned pages already, Mayor.
Moved by Michael, seconded by Susan. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote?
It's high pressure stuff.
Mike, that was pretty smooth. Let's see how you do on the next one.
Thank you, sir.
You're getting better
There's a
with
lot
this
of
one.
pressure. There's a lot of pressure.
It passes 5-0.
I know, they got the
Action
professor
item-
and the counselor over here grading me. Move that the rule require.
Well, but bear with me just a moment. So action item number 9 is proposed ordinance number 1107, repealing ordinance number 721 for 2000 NCMIC addition to the Clive urban renewal area. Joyce.
same story, different area. So recommending the same waiving of the readings so that we can get them filed by December 1st.
I do like it, Mayor, to have Joyce talk every chance we can get.
I agree.
Before she quits on us.
I agree with that. Joyce, thank you. Before we proceed, just let me back up to number 8 and declare that ordinance number 690 is declared to have been, or 1106 rather, is declared to have been enacted. Thank you, Professor.
See, it's high pressure, isn't it, Mayor? Professor on one side, council on the other.
I tell you what. Okay, very good. Now we're going to move back to action item number 9 and proposed ordinance number 1107. Councilman.
Move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to this meeting be suspended with respect to ordinance number 1107.
Second.
Moved by Michael, seconded by Susan to suspend the rules. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0.
Move that ordinance number 1107 be considered, placed upon its passage and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Michael, seconded by Susan. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0. Let the record reflect that ordinance number 1107 rather is declared to have been enacted. Joyce, I think we got you up here for the next 3 action items. To Michael's point.
Okay.
Got a lot of questions.
Thank you,
on
Joyce. Thank you, Joyce, very much. All right. Action item number 10 is the proposed ordinance number 1108, amending chapter 2-2 of Title 6 of the City Code regarding speed regulations. Jeff.
Good evening again. With the completion of the paving of Meredith Drive from Alice's Road to Warrior Lane, we got ready to put our signs back up, checked the code, and found out that it's never been codified as far as the speed limit there. So we're proposing to establish the speed limit to match the speed limit on the Urbandale side at 35 miles an hour. They're looking to get this enacted so the chief can write tickets if he needs to.
Questions for Jeff, council?
Are we suspending the rules?
I think
on
we're
this one?
suspending the rules on this one too.
Just real quick, Your
Okay.
Honor, one thing to note too, following the Warrior Lane annexation, we'll have to come back and do Warrior Lane as well when that's incorporated in the city for speed limit. And then we also have our discussions with Waukee on snow removal agreement. But just want to note that there'll be another one coming for Warrior Lane, but we would request the council waive the rules and proceed to third on this one.
Very good.
We haven't,
We coordinate with Urbandale on this, so it's consistent with Urbandale as well.
I'll move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to this meeting be suspended with respect to ordinance number 1108.
Second. You got a new reader.
Moved by Ted, seconded by John. Further discussion. Seeing none, will the council please vote? Much smoother.
Thank you. Thanks for noticing.
Right? I quit. I'm good.
I'll move that ordinance number 1108 be considered, placed upon its passage and adopted.
Hold on a second here. That the motion to suspend is passed 5-0. Ted, if you'd restate, please.
Yes,
Jumped the gun there.
Could you read that again, please?
I'll move that ordinance number 1108 be considered, placed upon its passage and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Ted, seconded by John. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0. Let the record reflect that ordinance number 1108 is declared to have been enacted. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to discussion items now. We've got 2 of them. The first one is regarding the 2021 Aquatic Season Report, and Richard is going to share the good news. Richard.
Thank you. Let Pete get the presentation up here real quick, but while he's doing that, while I get to be the one to kind of stand up here and talk about the season, it's not without a large team that really makes that successful. Doug Harris is in the back here. He and his team of 100+ seasonal people are really the ones that make it work day to day. They're the ones that ensure everyone goes home safely. And if there is an incident out there, they're well trained. People are rescued, and then we're able to turn them over to the fire department to ensure that they get the best possible care and then are able to go home safe after that. So I just want to thank them before jumping into a lot of fun and success we had here this summer. So just a few highlights, the kind of key numbers here. So we had a season that's just under 90 days. Really, I want to take credit for all the great weather we had this summer here. Many days over 90, 81 days, we were able to stay open the entire time. We only had 2 days that we were closed entirely, and 3 days that we closed halfway through just because of the weather. Either it be thunderstorms or rain, or the temperature just wasn't warm enough. 55,000 total plus people came through the gates this year at the Clive Aquatic Center. That's our biggest attendance we've had since 2016. So very excited about that. You know, we can't guarantee how many people are going to come through every year, but the weather makes a big difference. And so having a lot of really warm, sunny days made a difference. The highest was almost 1,400 people that came through the day after the Independence Day holiday. Lowest was one of those cold days in June, 47. The 2 days we were actually closed were the Memorial Day holiday because it was, I think, in the 40s and 50s. So the season got off to a little bit of a late start, but after that, we averaged about 700 people per day going through the Aquatic Center. Just to give you a kind of a frame of reference, we were about 450 in 2019. So really good season from attendance-wise and people being in there and having fun and enjoying themselves. So let's just kind of give you a look at the attendance trends that we've had here since 2014. So we generally hover above 50,000, getting as high as almost 60,000. And you can see the big dip at 0 due to the COVID year that we had in there. So just want to give you a kind of a feel where we're at, but really feel positive about the uptick that we had this year. Probably some pent-up energy of people not being able to get out and swim in 2020, as well as just a lot of good things going forward with the weather. We get a lot of good positive feedback. We do surveys from patrons for swimming lessons in a lot of areas, but this year we just grabbed a couple comments that were unsolicited on Google for the Clive Aquatic Center. So we just thought that would be kind of fun. These are people that just really enjoyed their time there. And so they went out and posted and gave us 5 stars. So just a great way to see what people think of the Clive Aquatic Center and what they're able to do there.
Richard, are we getting some feedback on that as well, right? These are the 5 positives. And I'm not looking for the smart aleck comments of, you know, whatever, but we want new diving boards. We want new slide. You know, do we take those into consideration?
Yeah, what we try to do.
Kind of the 0 through 4 stars.
Yeah, so as much as possible, you know, we have email addresses for anyone that either signed up for a pool pass or a swimming lesson. And so we try to get surveys out there every year to kind of get feedback from them, like what went well, what didn't go well. What we could do better next year, and maybe what are some enhancements. So we always try to get feedback on that. And we do have a little bit of that in here in the presentation about what people kind of thought from the year. So jumping into financials, this is something that's a little bit wonky because pool season falls across 2 fiscal years. And so the way that we've reported in the past is to do it by fiscal year. So you can see here the fiscal years, the green is our revenue and the red line is our expenses. And I want to point out, obviously we've talked extensively about how we had a growing gap of revenue and expenses prior to the pandemic, but it looks a lot worse in the 2019-2020 year based on how the financial years fell and related to the aquatic season. And then during the pandemic, we didn't make a decision to open up for swimming lessons till after the start of the next fiscal year. So the gap really wasn't that big, revenue to expenses, but the way it fell across some of the fiscal years makes it look kind of wonky. I would say the good thing is this season, for the first half of the 2021 season and the revenue that we have in expenses so far to date in this current fiscal year, we're showing a positive over the expenses that we have, you know, and a lot of that's due to the nice attendance we had there, but just a couple key kind of numbers that helps us kind of understand that a little bit better without being able to divide it up by season. We were up almost $26,000 this pool season over 2019 of just day-to-day admissions. We were able to increase our program fees, concession fees by almost $30,000. We were able to bump up season passes, like the sales this year. I think we were up almost $100,000 on pool passes this year. A lot of that's probably related to some of the agreement we did with Urbandale. We were able to increase that by almost 500 over 2019. So a lot of good trends of people getting out to the pool and coming often. This just kind of gives you a breakdown of the passes. So we do it in 2 ways. How many passes we sell, and then how many people use that pass, just to give you a kind of feel for that. And then also too, it's something a little bit unique that West Des Moines and Clive do between the aquatic centers is that reciprocity, where if you buy a pass in Clive, you can go to the 2 West Des Moines pools. If you buy the West Des Moines pass, you can go to the Clive pool. My understanding is that in most of the years prior to this, they were usually paying us a small number because based on the difference of how many Clive residents went that way and how many West Des Moines residents come this way, then we do a $4 kind of exchange rate. We ended up having to pay them about $10,000 this year because we had a significant increase of Clive pass holders that went to West Des Moines pools versus the other way around this year.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah.
Along those lines, I know we talked in the past briefly about potentially expanding that. Is that something we're looking at as more metro-wide, not just West Des Moines, but, you know, if a Clive resident wants to go to a city of Des Moines, or a city of Des Moines resident wants to come to Clive, we have that reciprocity. Is that something that we're considering looking at? Is that?
Yeah, so based on kind of the aquatic strategy we talked about over 6 months ago, one of the things we're going to be doing is reaching out to all the communities in the metro area that have aquatic centers and see if there's a possibility of putting together some sort of metro pass that would maybe have that reciprocity. So to really kind of beef up the public pool game to allow them to have a larger pool to go from that maybe makes it more attractive. Also too, we'll have the second year of the Urbandale agreement, but we're also reaching out to the Waukees, the Johnsons, the Grimes to see if they would have any interest in something like that, you know, because they're all struggling with that question about as they grow as a community, do they want to add a pool? Should they add a pool? Do the residents want to? Does the council and the residents want to take on that cost? So that's a very big positive for us. So I think we're going to continue to work and reach out to their staff, as well as potentially looking at marketing efforts to invite them out here and say, hey, come join us, see what we have to see
Yeah, I just
offer.
think it'd be a really nice added benefit for our Clive families if they could go beyond just Clive and West Des Moines. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that's kind of held us back, as I think the entire council is aware, Brian Longren, who's been our aquatics coordinator here for the last 6+ years, he's decided to move on and submitted his resignation a couple months ago. So we want to wait until we have the new aquatic supervisor before we reach out into those discussions. But it's on our list here pretty soon.
Couple of quick points, Richard.
Yeah.
Brian really did a nice job.
Yeah.
And he really did well on that. And the staff liked him quite a bit and did an excellent job, especially with a tough year last year, obviously. I like the thought, and Ted, especially with you, giving Clive citizens and extra opportunities to go to, potentially to visit other pools right there, right? Sometimes you go in the same pool, it can get, a little static after a while. So I really like that reaching out. But on the other hand, I also like and consider this as well as we reach out to both other neighboring communities that don't have pools. If it becomes a lot harder for a city to pass a bond referendum to a new pool when the citizens are happily using the Clive Aquatic Center right there. And especially for us to do that, it's a proactive opportunity for us to both increase attendance and on the flip side to decrease the community awareness that they want to build their own pool, which obviously affects us in the long run. So I like that proactive marketing and branding out and reaching out to citizens of Waukee, Grimes, and Johnson and Urban. I think that's a smart move.
Yeah, and we're seeing that with the pool passes. That's our current biggest draw. And the Urbandale pass resulted in another 500 passes sold, that agreement. So I think it was a net positive both ways.
Sure.
Could you just remind me how much is an annual pool pass for a resident?
It's going to depend on how many people you sign up for. So I don't have those numbers offhand, but an individual, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it just scales, increases that way. And I think it's like 10% less than the non-resident, roughly.
It's pretty affordable. I know for us, we calculated it out. If the kids went like 6 times over the summer, it more than paid for itself. So it may not even been that much. It was
a couple $100.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad at all compared to just paying for a day pass.
Right.
So I think it's very affordable for a family. Personally,
One person pass is about $90. Each additional person on the pass is about $45 additional.
Could you repeat that, Richard?
Yeah, so individual pass is about $90 and then about additional $45 for every person beyond that. Thanks to Doug in the back there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Pretty affordable for a whole summer, right?
Yeah.
Beyond that too, it's not just the pool passes and people coming for open swim. We do a lot of programs out there. A couple different things here I want to explain because the numbers don't maybe make sense at first view. one of the things we allow people to do is sign up for a lot of our programs via Sportsman. That's our online registration program. So one of the things we do is track kind of year to year is how many people sign up that way as a way to know if the programs are growing or shrinking. So we had 1,589 people sign up for one of our programs that way. And then you can see down here under some specific programs, we had almost 1,800 people do the water walking and lap swimming. The reason why that's more than what you would see there is there's a lot of people who just show up the day of and pay the daily rate to get in to do that. Same with some of the family night discounts, but the annual pooch plunge, which is very popular, is a kind of way to close the season out before we drain the pools. We had 170 dogs participate this year, which is the largest that we've ever had for that event. So
You were sold out for that, weren't you, Richard?
One of the things we did in the COVID year when we offered that at the end of the season was break it up actually into times, and that was very popular. And so we were able to do that again this year, and it allows us to get more dogs into the pool throughout that entire day.
That made a lot of sense too, because then it's not overwhelming at a certain amount of time. It breaks it up. People have their times. I know we've done that with my family several years now. And really, it's a great program, and people really enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so it's something that, it's just one of those annual ways to kick off into the fall by closing out the pool with the dogs in there. So then the next day the guys have to clean out all the dog hair. They love it, by the way, but. Swimming lessons, swimming lessons and teaching people how to swim is one of the most important things we do. We have the lifeguards there to ensure that people can use the pool safely. But beyond that, we want to make sure that we dedicate quite a bit of time to allow people to sign up for lessons and learn how to swim so that when they're not at the Clive Aquatic Center or some managed facility like this, they can do that in a safe way. So we had over 1,200 kids go through swimming lessons this year at the Aquatic Center. Much of that is in the mornings and in the evenings when the open swim and some of the other programs are ongoing. We also do a feedback on what that looks like, how our lifeguards do and how they teach the kids and what they get out of it. And so overall, we have very good feedback on how the instructors do, how they are, how they did in teaching, and really have a very high percentage of people that would re-enroll in our swimming lessons. And so this is really important for us in preparing for the following year and how do we do it and better than the year before that.
Richard, do we still collaborate with the swimming club? I know we have in the past. What's the status of that?
Yeah, so we did that swimming club collaboration last year when we had a bunch of open pool time. We just weren't able to make it work this year based on getting back to a normal pool season. There were very few times that actually are left that we could have rented it to them when you get outside of swimming lessons, some of the programming, the water walking, open swim. So we just weren't able to make it work. But we're going to continue that communication. And if there is something that does work in the future, we'll keep it open and find a way to work with them. So staffing, like I said at the very beginning, this is something that's very important to ensuring a lot of success out there. And it takes nearly 100 to over 100 kids of high school and college age to make this thing work and make it work well so that they can do their job and make sure that everyone goes home safely and have a ton of success in finding these kids and really doing a lot of fun stuff out there. So this year it was 66 lifeguards. Normally we have a lot more return, but I think between, just having last year off, we had almost 80% new staff this year. So a lot of training went into that. But we didn't have any of the problems that some of the other pools and aquatic seasons did in the metro, finding staff where they had to close certain elements of their pools down or entire pools down for some days. So we're very fortunate in that. We also composed of 4 actual pool managers and 1 head pool manager. All those are seasonal positions, with the head pool manager being the one that kind of coordinates our swimming lesson program. Additionally, we have 15 concession staff, some water exercise instructors, and some of the lifeguards do double duty where they will be lifeguard, but then also be instructors for our swimming lessons as well. So it just takes a big team to do this and do it well. And we have a great team year to year. And so it makes things work well. Also, too, just kind of following up as we close out this year, some of the things that we've done to improve the facility and the operations of that. Something we tried this year for the first time, we went to online pool pass sales. In the past, it's always been done by paper. We still allowed the paper option this year, but online for the first time, and a majority of people took that opportunity and applied for it online. It reduced the kind of crush of people coming in to get their pool passes. Additionally, we offered opportunities for them to actually pick the passes up out at the pool instead of here in the building, to find a way to spread people out. And so we've learned some really good things that will continue on. We're also able to use volunteers to clean a lot of the pool chairs and restore them wherever possible to kind of cut down on future expenses of replacing those. So we had volunteers from Link Associates came in, scrubbed them all down, and repainted areas where necessary. In the photo you can see here, we replaced some of the older shade canopies, the really large ones there, and went with some smaller scale ones, but more of them so that there's better shade throughout the concession area as well as on some of the areas of the deck. We just about finished up painting the leisure pool here before it got too cold. We'll finish that right before it opens in the spring. And we did end up purchasing a few lounge chairs. As we look forward to the 2022 season, like we talked about, Brian gave us his resignation. He was kind enough to give us that far in advance so that we could start looking for a new aquatic supervisor, and is also going to stay on through just about the end of the year to help kind of that transition, which we really, really appreciate. We've been going through the collection of people that want to do this job. We did our first round of interviews last week, and we've narrowed it down to 5 really high quality candidates that we're looking forward to having before you here, someone to hire pretty soon. We're looking forward to starting hiring for seasonal staff here approximately December 1st. We're working with Roxanne to time that up potentially with the new NeoGov system so that the lifeguards could apply through NeoGov. So that's kind of a tentative date at this point. As we get a little bit closer, we'll put all the emails and social media out so people know when we can start having people apply. We're looking at improving our concession stand offerings. We haven't really changed any of the prices or things that we've offered out there for the last 3 or 4 years. So we're going to try to shake it up a little bit, see if what's been popular, what hasn't been popular, and just try some different ways to sell some more concessions while people are there. One thing that's been in our capital equipment budget for a few years, the old concrete trees on the lazy river were original to the pool. We're starting to deteriorate. We have purchased those and we'll be installing new ones prior to the season. Also, kind of some of the efforts that we talked about with a kind of strategy for the facility going into the future, looking at a scholarship program that we could get before the council for consideration. We want to evaluate that 28E agreement with West Des Moines to make sure that it still makes sense and it's still beneficial for both communities, expand those marketing efforts, and then put together a 5-year maintenance and improvement plan for that facility. As we approach year 20 here for the pool coming up very soon, we just want to make sure it continues to stay a very high quality facility. So we're kind of in the late stages of putting that forward for the budget proposal and what that would look like for the next 5 years. But I think we've got a really good kind of plan going forward. So with that, I'd take any questions that anyone has.
Questions, council?
A question and a comment. I know we've been talking about, and you've been working on developing that scholarship program. I remember a meeting with all of us and Matt, Pete. That's something that still interests me a lot. It's part of the reason I set up the question of how much. I really didn't know how much. My kids have not, been in the aquatic center. But that is something I'd be interested, my wife and I'd be interested in sponsoring at least 1 or 2 of those from the get-go. So once you get that set up, I'd like to do the equivalent for those individuals. I guess more to come because you've got to figure out how to qualify folks, right? And then I think we need to talk about also how do we transport some, safely if we have to, but encourage the bike trail and all that. But I'm looking forward to more to come because I want to be involved as many others would too.
Absolutely.
Could find a way to collaborate with the foundation on that as well.
Yeah.
For a broader scholarship.
Could be a great opportunity to really have some community engagement there in terms of number of families
check to you right
sponsoring.
now, Mayor.
Come on.
All right.
Especially if we maybe perhaps utilize a bus shuttle or something from Lenan Park or something would bring kids over, and Mike can capitalize off that scholarship program. Great opportunity for maybe some kids in addition with swimming lessons or regular pool play, just to get them involved with that as well.
Yeah, you know, the presentation of DART here a couple meetings ago really got us starting to think about, is that a possibility? Some of the programs they talked about, I think maybe that
Yes, it is.
Grimes service. So I think as we kind of start to go through that preliminary research of that, we're going to reach out to DART and see if there's some sort of possibility like that maybe we find a way to do a shuttle from certain parts of town a couple times a day during some seasons. Also, we're kind of preliminary research. What are other communities doing? What's been successful, not successful, in a way as we start to build kind of that and get a proposal forward to the council.
Richard, great stuff. And it's a significant asset for us.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate your leadership on it, and more to come.
Yeah, we're excited for 2022.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, our second discussion item is the upcoming city council vacancy. And Matt, I think you're going to walk us through that.
Yeah, just want to kick off the conversation. So included in your packet are the kind of various Iowa code sections that relate to an upcoming city council vacancy with Mayor Pro Tem's election to the next term as mayor. That will, pending the final canvass, of course, of the various county board of supervisors, which will be happening here shortly. Just wanted to have a discussion item for the council, at least in terms of giving directions to staff in terms of what the council wants to see in terms of resolutions or anything related to appointment, special election process, whatever it may be for future council action, pending mayor-elect's pending resignation from his council seat to be able to move into the mayor role on January 1. So with that, Your Honor, I'll just start that off, and legal counsel and myself are ready to answer any questions and pending your discussion. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, council questions, thoughts, desires. In my time here, historically, we've done appointments, but that is, there's nothing set in stone there. That's just been the preference of the council. I think we've made that work pretty well, but we have two options. I think staff's going to need some guidance and, as to which way you want to go with that. And then we can, based on that consensus, we can get the process moving. So I'd like to hear from any of you.
Let me just outline, if we were to go for a special election, the cost would be roughly, I think, $14,000. Is that the ballpark we're looking at?
It's the rough estimate we've received from both county auditors in terms of doing a special election. Yep. We haven't done one in a while, so we got a kind of a rough estimate from them.
Per county or total?
Total. 14 on the high end is the estimate.
But I think, as the mayor says, our past practice is that we know that there are individuals in our community who would be well qualified to be appointed for the balance of the term.
If I'm correct, I mean, I'm a beneficiary of an appointment, right? And
We
it
do make
worked.
mistakes on
No,
occasion.
I'm just kidding. We make mistakes on occasion. Yes, sir, Professor. Thank you. No, he said it about me. I'll take it. I'll take it. But I did walk into that one, so that's fair. But I don't see any downside of the appointment process, because you appoint an individual, still then can do a special election, right? So
Well, that decision has to be, well, let's just outline the timeframe. What we're talking about, this is a discussion item tonight.
right.
If we decide to go the appointment route,
Yep.
then legal counsel will bring back for us the resolution for our first meeting in December. And then if we pass that, then it has to be published.
Right.
And then my understanding is that 14 days after publication, within that 14-day window, someone could petition for a special election.
Correct.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it's not that we could,
Got it. That was the
so,
appointment.
so even though we would decide on December 9th, okay, we're gonna appoint, and then at our January 13th meeting, we do appoint someone, the person challenging has to decide before we decide who it is we're gonna appoint.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. And you've explained that to me a couple of times, and I'm just now getting it. So
I was thinking
I
when
got
I
it.
was appointed in 2013 that it was subject to the possibility that
Mhm.
a petition could be filed. So there's also that kind of
That's
time.
absolutely correct. I mean, if that occurs, then you would only serve until that special election.
Okay,
So in that scenario that
confused. on the
Councilmember
timing.
Edwards mentions is if you decide to choose an appointment process, the 14-day window, petitions submitted for a special election, you could still appoint somebody at the first meeting in January until the auditor sets the special election date. That person would serve in that appointed role until the special election. That appointed person could choose to run, file a petition for the ballot. Others could do that. And then if that appointed person is not elected, then they would be removed and the elected person would take office. We've heard it could be as, depending on if in a special election petition could be February. It's kind of up to the auditor. There's a 90-day window that the special election has to happen within from the receipt of that petition.
But we set the date on that special election. Is that not right? Or does the county set the date?
County does.
The county sets the date.
Statute does.
Okay.
So there's really, if I might just orient you to the decision point right now. So the decision for the council right now is, do you want to do an appointment process? Or would you just rather go right to a special election? That's the decision and the direction we're looking for tonight. So then we can tee that up for actual resolution with that action item. And let's assume you go the appointment route as the tradition of the city has been. Yours, Councilmember Judkins, was a matter of timing. The appointment did happen before that 14-day, some of those timings overlap. So let's say you go with the appointment process. Now the decision goes to the public. You continue down the appointment pathway. If the public makes a decision to do a special election, then they go through that process and that time lane. You still go through the appointment process and then it just shifts to the special election when that timing hits. So it is just a matter of an overlapping timing on that second decision, which belongs to the public. Does that help at all?
That's kind of what
But I
happened in
thought I
Indianola,
heard
I believe.
One description that the only timing for the decision to do a special election would be before the appointment happened.
That's right.
But what I'm hearing you say is
It all
The
depends on when
appointment.
the city council meetings line up is
And we only
is
have one
typically
in
what
December.
happens.
Probably at the end of the day, really, it's if an appointment is made, the time frame afterwards within the appointment to petition for a special election is how long?
So actually, Mayor, the trigger for the special election is not from the appointment date. It's from the vote
The published
on, yes.
publication date of the announcement that you're filling it by appointment. That'll be published. Once Matthew has the publication date, then the 14-day clock starts.
Yeah, okay.
But not of who you, that's where I'm confused. And that's where
Right.
it's not about who, it's that you're going to do.
Process.
And
It's the
so,
process.
so somebody is hedging their bet to say, I want a special election without knowing if they're going to be appointed or not, right?
Yeah. And
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
the city be
With
out
the roll of the
14 grand.
dice and then 2 weeks later, you appoint after they've asked for a special election, they fill out, okay, now I got it. So
Well, I have to tell you,
a
I
gamble.
felt good about the fact that once I was appointed, there was still an opportunity for a petition to be circulated that could have resulted in a special election, just because it seemed like that was more of a community endorsement that ended up not happening. So.
I did my best, Susan. I just couldn't get enough signatures.
What?
he fell 10 short, he said.
Yeah.
Well, the statute does require an appointment within 40 days. So you are
Oh.
constrained slightly by the timing
Yeah.
that's set out in the statute. It's not, oh, we'd rather just wait and give them a chance to file the petition for election. It's all based on, the appointment has to occur within so many days and then they have so many days. It's statutorily set.
Lawyers.
I just think that is
Who would have thought?
really good to be able to have that option. So, which we would have, I guess.
The public has
if
it.
we were doing 2 meetings in December. It's just a problem because of the not being able to do it until like a month apart.
So our question is the direction that we need to give.
So
Do we-
I'll start off right there and absolutely, John, appreciate that. We've had a tradition of an appointment process. And I think it served us well with both Susan and Mike with long-term appointments here and have been valued public service right there. My feeling is that I'm in preference of an appointment. Like I said, it served us well. I think that $14,000 is a lot to ask of the citizens to go through another special election. And quite frankly, this seat, it will 2 years later, there'll be an election anyway. So, you know, from my perspective, I'm in favor of the appointment.
Yeah, I agree with Eric. You know, I think our satisfaction surveys show that the public trusts us to make good decisions, and I think we will have excellent candidates. We you know, there's no doubt that we're going to have good candidates to appoint. So I think we will be able to get an excellent person on the council. So I see no reason not to go that route.
Yeah,
I concur.
Susan?
I like the idea of doing an appointment, but also having a second meeting in December so it can happen in such a way that there could be the potential to not have that month. You know, there would be a potential once the appointment happens, if the citizens feel that they wish to petition for an election, they have a basis upon which to do it.
You still have it though. I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
confused
but
by that.
I think you're
usually,
confusing it.
no, I'm not, because I think they should
Counsel?
know who it is.
Well, we wouldn't appoint till
Or do they
January.
feel comfortable
No,
about the person?
I think I understand Councilmember Judkins' point, and she's correct. What she's saying are two courses of action. One, you make an appointment, you make the announcement for the appointment based on Professor, see what you've done to me? Councilmember Edwards'
You'll go by professor.
resignation triggers the 40-day window. And if he resigns where there's only one meeting in between, you would make the appointment, you do the appointment process, invitation for applicants, but that petition for the special election would occur before the January meeting, which is when you would appoint someone. She's suggesting that an alternative process where you would have a 2-week window in between the time where you solicit applicants and you make the appointment. Therefore, the 2 weeks in which you would have to file for special election would occur after the known appointee is decided. The way you could do that is either A, have a second meeting in December, or Councilmember Edwards could resign later in the month in December so that you would trigger the 2 January meetings.
Well, wait, hold on a second. I thought that I served till December 31st. Stuck with me until then. I'm sorry.
We like that.
If John resigns on January 1st,
It
right?
would be the announcement date as opposed to the effective date. That's the 40-day trigger, right?
No, I don't think so.
It's the
I think
effect-
it's resigning as of a certain date,
So
not the date that he delivers the letter.
Correct. The effective date. So you would have your 2 meetings in January.
You would have your 2 meetings in January. That's,
Okay.
I was getting confused, Susan, I'm sorry, by what you're saying about December. It's really, this process occurs in January.
I just want to know when the timing gets triggered for the special election decision, because I feel more comfortable with the public knowing
Yeah.
that an appointment has happened, so they have some time still if they feel that they would want to petition for a special election, knowing who's at play there.
And I think that's been the process historically, and I
Yeah,
think that
I was
opportunity
just-
has always been there. This doesn't
Okay.
change any of that as far as I'm concerned, unless
No, so
council's telling me I'm off base here.
we worked through 2 timeline calendars in our mind based on some potential. If this is the direction of the council, that you would like to have the appointment and within the window of time for still time to petition for special election, we will work the calendar to make that happen. Just looking for your guidance, I guess, in that regard. We can make that work.
yeah, there's 2 paths on that point. Is if Councilmember Edwards sets his resignation date as December, it has to be no later than December 31st. Otherwise, he can't be sworn in as mayor that day for January 1st. That triggers the 40-day clock. So in a scenario, to Councilmember Judkins' point, you could wait to pass your resolution for appointment at the first meeting in January, which when we publish it starts the 14-day clock, which by the time it gets published, Matthew, it's going to be after that second meeting in January. So in the scenario that Susan's talked, and when Councilmember Judkins was appointed, that's how that played out. And so you would be making your selection and resolution in the first meeting in January, doing the appointment the second meeting of January, and then there is still a few days left. There'd be a few days left for a special election petition to be submitted pending that appointment selection. That's another option because you can put a future date on your resignation. That's what starts the 40-day clock. We have to have either an appointment. We have to have some kind of something happening within that 40-day window. So that gets you into February, basically.
I just feel like that's the fair thing for citizens to feel that they're in agreement.
I guess,
I
yeah,
think it's the most typical thing I've seen happen in most communities.
that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I don't see what the issue is.
I just heard the other thing described. They have another timeline that wouldn't.
A December timeline makes no sense. We got one meeting in December, going into the holidays. Let's get into the new year and start with the process as we've done in the past. As far as
we've always done.
I don't know why we're confusing this issue.
Well, there are just two different ways you can do it based on the timing. The difference this way is you've given now your applicants a 10-day window to apply for appointment versus what we had in mind, which was a little bit longer of a window. But
yeah,
who comes first, the chicken or the egg? We can go with the chicken. That is not a problem.
Well, I think we want a fair process more than anything else. And I think if we play it out in January as described.
For some reason, I think I was appointed in December, but I do. But anyways, that's too late. You can't recall me. But yeah, the first scenario I think there was a scenario that it would play out that it would miss a special election. To your point, this new scenario, I'm in favor of either. I just, that's a month without someone in this, no, longer than a month. Several months, right, without someone in a seat.
No. We would appoint someone at the second meeting in January.
It would only be one meeting without.
One meeting.
And then there could be a special election that replaces that person.
Right.
They could be
I think
interim.
this is a pretty well-oiled machine. I think we can run it for 30 days or so.
Maybe
Mike, I
seven
don't know.
without Joyce, maybe 7.
Maybe,
Remember, Joyce is quitting, not retiring. Oh, retiring, trying to get her back.
So do we have consensus? Do we have John can pull this together? Okay.
So is the direction of the council, then you want the appointment resolution on the first meeting in January, pending action by Mayor Pro Tem on his resignation date?
I think so.
Correct.
So I
Just so
still
I'm
need
clear
to,
then, sorry, John, that means that, so we're going to do make the announcement for the appointment at the first meeting and then do the appointment at the second meeting. Is that what we're saying?
right.
So you have a tight,
Tight
so
window.
that's why the window is a little smaller for applicants.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it should be sufficient, but yeah.
Basically,
I
they'll
think
have
the word
about
will be
a
out
week.
there.
Yeah.
They'll have about a week to get their app. Right.
And really, they've had 6 months. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone knows this is
Everybody
coming,
has known
right?
that,
And it's, if you're interested, you probably already know.
Matt, is that the direction you need?
I got what I need.
I see heads nodding up and down the dais here, so.
The attorney will
Good.
draft the appropriate resolution.
Good, okay. That is discussion item number 2. So we're going to move to reports. Pete.
Thank you, Your Honor. So happy that the Lions are doing their holiday basket program again. We did push that in the November utility newsletter. We'll continue to promote that on our communications platforms. And on the Chamber's helping out with some of the communications on this, and they've set up a page in addition to what the Lions already have on social media so that folks know how to best participate for this coming year. We can send that link around again in the Friday email that you all receive tomorrow from Matt. Last night, we had a very successful Indian Hills Woods neighborhood meeting over at the Special Events Building. Well, not a huge turnout, weather worked against us, but we did have 5 folks there and all of them were living in homes that are either very close or right up to the Indian Hills Woods area. The primary discussion point yesterday was what level of vegetation buffer or screening do they want to see throughout the corridor? It varies based on how much space we have to work with. If you're further south, widens out. We have more room to do all of the stream bank stabilization that we need to do, the drainage stabilization. Gives us more places to put in different types of plants. As we move north, drainage narrows, runs straight. Gives us neat opportunities to put in a lot of different devices to help us slow down and manage that water well. But when we smooth out those banks and bring them back to a more appropriate angle of repose and then have to use the real estate for the trail as well, then we start running out of space to put a lot of planting. That doesn't keep us though from getting something that gets us back to something that establishes a sense of privacy. I think that the neighbors who did participate can understand the fix that we're in. Can't just magically create more land in those narrow spots. But we did hear clearly from them that they want to go with the more aggressive, denser vegetation screen in those places where we can do it. And if we could squeeze out a little bit more density in those narrow spots, they'd like us to do that as well. The RES team did a nice job explaining and sort of demonstrating the options for them. And they also, or have already sort of known this probably better than anybody else, those neighbors know that this isn't going to happen fast. And we reiterated that and went through the project timeline. Also shared with them what we expect to still get done this season with construction and made sure everybody was clear that next year it's going to be another construction season in October, November, December, very much like what we're experiencing right now. A lot of big equipment, a lot of big material, a lot of noise, and some just change in experience in that space. I think if we continue to communicate though and be receptive to points and to questions from the neighborhood, then we'll keep building trust and continue with them down this path to restoring the area and building something really beautiful for the neighborhood. I do have a number of points that came up in the meeting that I committed to bringing back to staff to see if we could incorporate them into some future planning and thinking about the space. One big one that we did commit to was reaching out individually to those properties that abut on the Indian Hills Woods Park and talking with those folks who are interested about the kinds of species they're especially interested in. We didn't commit to everything that they did say they could do anything they want in there on our species list. We got to plant things that are appropriate for the area. But we did say we absolutely want to work with them to come up with things that give them the experience that they want to have in their backyard. Maybe they want something that blooms in the spring. Maybe they want some big fall color that we could provide with another type of planting as well. So we look forward to those discussions with the individual property owners.
Pete, real quick, part of the stormwater management plan, one of the things that we looked at in consideration was a partnership with individuals on trees, on working with them as far as planting trees on their own property. Have we ever considered working as a collaboration with the citizens that maybe in a very narrow point, we could work with them to provide trees to plant in their own yards right there, to provide that screening that perhaps they're looking for?
It's a great idea, Councilman. We did not discuss that yesterday. What we've committed to in the park area, which a lot of them experience as already part of their backyard, is saying, the city's responsible for this space. We're going to foot the bill, but we want your direction on what it's going to look like within certain parameters. But I like this idea of potentially extending further to see if we could do something on a cost share basis or maybe something even bigger than that.
That's a great idea, actually.
Yep.
It's not just the park space. Let's, it is, write this down, Ted.
Well, they've got some skin in the game too, but at some points with that, there's just not enough room as far as in the city's property. So it wouldn't be that hard. We've talked about shared tree planting anyway, so.
It's a great idea.
It's a little bit of that Harbach model you're working on. And
Well, that's the next point I wanted to make, Councilman. So we've set our next Harbach meeting for Thursday, December 2nd. We're going to do it at the Diamond Public Safety Building at 6 o'clock. We've put as much as 90 to 120 minutes on the clock for that one. Jim, Rachel, and I have worked on, and Brandon have been working on the next communication that will be going out. If for those of you who are in good touch with neighbors in that area, there are going to be a number of different letters that go out because we have some specific asks for the people who live immediately along Harbach that have to do with temporary easements. And we don't want to confuse this larger neighborhood communication with some of that very narrow temporary easement discussion. The more, I think, the big letter, the letter that's going to be going to everybody, inviting everybody to come back together, will be building on what we heard from our first neighborhood meeting and committing to continuing the discussion around a couple of big items. One will be, what does it look like around this question of connectivity in the neighborhood? The sidewalk width on the north side of Harbach and the construction area got a lot of attention during the discussion. One of the good points that we heard from Councilman McCoy and others was didn't have an opportunity necessarily to see the work that had been done in the first district planning process around these connectivity questions. So it's bicycle routes to destinations like Crestview and Lannan, and then ultimately down to the Greenbelt. The feedback that we've received in that process so far shows a big interest in the broad neighborhood to connectivity to those spots, but that we know that that's not the only opinion that's out there. When we go into this meeting, we want to be able to share some of those concepts and explain why that might align better with an 8-foot trail segment there that in the future could provide connectivity to some of these other spaces, but also have very legitimate conversations about what does that mean from a maintenance standpoint? Is there something the city wants to do potentially with maintenance of a trail like that that would be over and above what we have already represented when it comes to snow or other items as well? So all of that can still be on the table for discussion. Staff obviously is going to present what we've engineered thus far, but what we think is the proper solution. But the final decision obviously comes to this council, and the council makes that decision based on input from the neighborhood. So we're going to get that for you as best we can.
Sounds good, Pete. But
I would start, well done on both of these. I don't think, I would challenge many other cities to explain how they're letting neighbors participate in the park, right? And us getting plants for them to match their, what they like and what they want to see. And that's pretty cool. The Harbach as well, reaching out like that to those, to further in. And I think we have to be careful as a council to, there are going to be 5 or 6 or 7 on Harbach that are going to not like it, right? And I'm not saying I'm siding with any of it yet, but when you look at the whole of the neighborhood and you go all the way to Hickman, and you go over the Windsor Heights border to 86 and even further, because folks in my neighborhood will use that trail to get down to, the Windsor Heights. We don't have a great trailhead either. And so it's got to be at the end, the better of the whole, rather than the better of the 2 to 3 squeaky wheels. And I get it. I fall into that too. You listen to those 1 or 2, and when you look at that big picture of that neighborhood turning over to small kids and families, it's a pretty cool story to say, yeah, maybe not today, but in 5 years, this 8-foot trail you all will like it. Like I said to you, Pete, the other night, if you told me to put an 8-foot trail in my yard today, I'd love it. Not for me, but my neighborhood's turning over as well. Yeah, and these little ones, they're now on electric cars and driving up and down the street sidewalk, and they're bigger than the 4-foot.
Going about 15 miles an hour.
Faster, yeah.
Faster.
Yeah, honking all times of night and everything. That's my hood, but I think, right, we got to be conscious. I think this council always has of the whole, not the few. But.
Last item was a lot of hustle getting ready for a big day here at the end of this month with the dedication and ribbon cutting around the Clive Public Safety Center. We'll be engaging media probably in the few days before Thanksgiving, because we'll come back on the 30th and the following week and do the big event, but engaging media to see if they'd like to have a little sneak peek. I've had a lot of fun working with our former Clive Chamber President, Cinnamon Rost, on a lot of the design elements for this, and they've all come together really nicely. And I think we're going to put forward a very, very good foot and make a good and continue building on Clive's solid reputation as we bring people together for this fun event.
It'll be a great time. Just to reiterate, that's Tuesday, November 23rd. That's Family Day from 5:30 to 7. Just for the record, and Tuesday, November 30th, the ribbon cutting at 10 a.m. and then an open house from 5 to 7 p.m.
Correct. And Mary, just for folks who haven't RSVP'd yet, it's not essential that you do that, but RSVPs are helpful as we can make sure we create a space that's safe and get the right number of refreshments for everybody over the course of the day.
Good, Pete, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ted.
Not the nightmare.
Thank you, Ted. Eric?
Yeah, CBB board meeting met for quarterly meeting. Audit came in very clean, so appreciate that. As far as kind of an overview of 2021, we hosted 214 convention events, which is some of the big ones, the Dew Tour, the Ironman, National High School Rodeo. So economic impact the community was 54 million plus. So good signs as we're coming out of COVID, hopefully, and that we're seeing some regeneration of events right here. Sales teams 29% to goal. Still seeing some cancellations, no doubt about that. But we posted local meeting planners, hosted several site events for, again, Ironman, NAI volleyball. Marketing, we had one of the cool things, over 407,000 website visits in the first quarter. So this was an all-time high, which really demonstrates there's a real interest in Des Moines as a point of destination for whatever type of event that you're having. So we had that hype video. I think everyone's seen that. I'm glad to send that out again about Des Moines with the Sisterettes. Pretty big deal right there. A lot of hits on that. And then I thought it was pretty cool. The Latin King, in conjunction with CVB, sent the announcers to the Chicago Cubs some steak to Burgo. They talked about Des Moines and the Latin King for over 3 minutes on national TV during a Cubs game right there. So it's that type of out of the box marketing that's, that we like to call it the best. So part of that Des Moines campaign right there. Also, I have a copy of the annual marketing plan. If anyone would like to look at it, I'm glad to share it.
Eric, thank you. Good
That's all,
work.
Mayor.
Good to hear the trends going the right way.
Good trends.
Yeah, appreciate it. John?
Just to follow up on the slides I sent to you earlier, the MAC, Metro Advisory Council, had a report from Invest DSM. And I tell you, that is an impressive operation. They've been able to leverage a lot of money and do a lot of improvement in neighborhoods. And I think in our District 1, our eastern neighborhoods, this would present a real opportunity, whether or not we are able to partner with Invest DSM or we look at something for the suburbs, but certainly talking with our neighbors, they've got similar issues that you want to be able to, and the investment per house is not that great, but the impact where you get a number of folks in the neighborhood, each updating their house, upgrading, taking care of things on the exterior, huge difference. The pictures they show you of those neighborhoods in Des Moines, just amazing, just amazing.
And
So-
John, you said that Invest DSM is looking to go more regional?
No,
No.
okay. They've increased their staff. They've got a lot of people working on it, and they're really leveraging a lot of dollars, including Polk County money.
Mhm.
So again, I don't know if there's an opportunity to partner with them or, how we might do it, but we certainly, I think, need to look at doing something like that with them or our neighbors. We're all similarly situated. I mean, talk to the folks from West Des Moines, the Valley Junction area is one in particular where this investment would really pay off. And what they're doing is, by making this relatively small investment in each house, is increasing the property values of the homes, and it just brings.
Well, Urbandale, Eastern Urbandale has similar type
yeah,
neighborhoods.
exactly.
I mean, Windsor Heights certainly does. I mean, it's every community really. So, yeah.
Talk with Amanda about that, how we can perhaps incorporate that in the District 1 planning process and leverage those dollars for segments of Clive as well. I think we need to work with that.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if you haven't let me know what you want to be doing in next year as far as service, as far as boards, if you want to change or stay where you are, be sure to let me know so we can try to get that figured out.
How do you want to handle that, given the appointment process?
Well, I think the priority, the folks that are here get the priority as far as where they want to go. And then the new person will slide into what we've got. Unless you always suggest otherwise.
I've already got it all laid out, you guys, so that's all set.
But that is a fair, I mean, I agree with that, right? That you just got to go for two reasons. My organization will be looking for an answer by the end of the year, right? And all the organizations will be looking for that, to who to slate for that first meeting in January. And it's always that we can't wait to announce who's going to represent in our case, the bylaws would say it's a default to the old person, but if they don't want to serve, they're not around anymore. So I think we do owe it to make those decisions sooner than later to all these organizations that, that we belong to.
Well, and DART, for example, they wanted to know November 1.
Right. And they're making decisions on their executive board now, or they
Well, I
want,
would just suggest that depending on who it is, there may be a real strength and passion about something. So I know I would be open if I'm appointed to something and somebody would be really good at that into having a change. And we've done midstream
Oh,
changes
absolutely.
before too, so.
Sure. But to Mike's point, I mean, we do have to make a decision before the end of the year and notify, and then if we need to make changes, we make changes.
And you'll communicate offline. So it's all good. I think all of you serve very well and represent us very well. It's my pleasure to share with this group, and for the record that today is Matthew Graham's birthday. We're not going to embarrass him by singing for him, but let's give him a round of applause. Happy birthday, young man.
Quite an accomplishment.
It's all good. Okay. And just, a short speech would be appropriate, but, and just to everybody here, happy Thanksgiving. This is our last meeting for the month. Hope God bless all of you. Safety with you and your families. I hope you're able to get together with people that are important to you, as we have a lot to be thankful for. So I just wanted to share that and offer that to everybody tonight. And Susan, we'll pass it to you.
Okay, well, I kind of along with the Invest DSM reference, I was pleased to meet with Matt on Friday to begin discussion about our economic development initiative for Clive. And this is the type of example of what can evolve as we get a group in place to help us really look at our economic development plan and start to identify some parts of the city where special types of investments or incentives could be helpful. So when you mentioned West Des Moines, their focus on Valley Junction evolved out of that kind of economic development focus of the whole city and identifying where some growth could be possible. So it's a great thing to bring it up, and we're going to be moving in that direction. And Matt will talk with everybody to kind of get your input and feedback as we get ready to start to move forward. The Polk County Council of Watershed Management Authorities met on Monday, and it just kind of brings to mind that I wanted to mention we have really lost a huge light in the world of watershed work with former Charles City Mayor Jim Erb passing. And he has really been a leader in our Watershed Management Authority efforts. He was the first president of Watershed Management Authorities of Iowa. I succeeded him, and I'm still in that role, but I just like to make sure everyone's aware of that loss.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for your great work there as well. Michael.
I do not have anything.
John, write that down.
I just appreciate staff rearranging the ribbon cutting around my birthday. So thank you again for watching that day.
Oh, the real reasons come out. Madam Council, anything for the group? Matt, we'll go to you.
Just a few items this evening, Your Honor. First off, at your December meeting, we will have the Des Moines Airport coming before you. I've been sharing some of that information of the work that they're doing with the metro communities in terms of trying to leverage over 300 million of state and federal dollars and getting all the metro communities and counties to participate in that. So they'll be before you at your December meeting to provide that presentation and discussion. Won't necessarily have any formal action for you that night. We want to kind of see your all's reaction to the discussion. And then I know a number of communities are getting a similar presentation. West Des Moines, Urbandale, Ankeny, Des Moines already had their presentation, I think Polk County. So getting them around doing the road show on that, which I think is, again, as we talked about the last meeting, a huge economic development project for the region with the terminal there. Also, I know Councilmember Judkins brought this up last time. I did get an email, and I'll share it tomorrow on Bravo Gala table. So wanted to see, I'm guessing there's going to be interest in that for this year for the city of Clive to have a table. So just confirm that, and we'll make sure we get that on the list for those 10 seats and see who's interested in attending that.
Matt, did they raise the price for city attendees?
They did a little
also?
bit, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a discount from the normal ticket price, but it has been raised, yes.
Okay.
And then lastly, of course, there's been a lot in the news about the new OSHA rule that came out last week from the federal government, and then a lot of pending lawsuits and a stay by a federal court. Just wanted to give this council kind of understanding of at least where staff is operating is, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty of what the next 2 months will hold, but what we're doing at a staff level is preparing like the rule is going to go into effect on January 4th. And so we're putting the appropriate policies together, making the appropriate preparations that the OSHA rule is going to be in place. There's 2 pathways on that rule, and the path that I'm driving towards at this moment is the option of mandatory testing for unvaccinated, and then having that weekly testing requirement to conform with that OSHA regulation. So that's what we're working towards at this moment, working with our legal counsel, our labor attorney, Mary Funk from NIMASTER on a lot of those details, putting together a policy. We'll have a policy before you at your December meeting because we have to adopt a policy by early December. But then the testing requirement wouldn't go into place until January 5th. So we're just operating at the moment, pending a whole lot of litigation that's happening. Like it will go into place, and then we can pivot from there and have further conversations if things change. So that's where we're at this moment, Your Honor. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Matt, council?
Any update on the paint spill situation?
So the update, at least that I have, is they paid.
Mhm.
Home Depot paid our hazmat bill that we sent them. Other than that, I have not heard of anything formal from DNR in terms of fine or enforcement at this point, but we'll report that back if we do get it. But they did pay their bill.
Everything got sufficiently cleaned up, no
Yes.
issues, nothing residual there that we have to worry about.
Yep, the booms, they stayed out there for a little while longer, and then they've been now removed. So we're all good there.
The neighbors did ask about it during our meeting last night, in part because that was the group that we really communicated to a lot while it was happening because we knew they would see it.
Yeah. Good. Matt, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Matthew, any other correspondence? All there, huh? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order, council? John?
Just a quick question. Matt, the art in the public safety building, is it completely done now?
So it is installed, and he is actually, the artist coming back tomorrow to put the lighting up. So all 5 leaves are in there and looking pretty. So it looks, especially when with the way the lobby space was done, and when you have the sunlight bounce in there. I happened to be in there this morning when the sun was kind of shining through on the one side. It's, you know, it's a little disorienting when you first walk in there because of how they're like all positioned. But then once you kind of get a feel of it and think of it, especially as it's windy out right now with leaves blowing around, the whole idea that it's leaves blowing into the building, then as you walk in underneath it, it's pretty cool. It turned out pretty great. And then when the lighting gets incorporated tomorrow, you'll be able to see that immediately because we're going to get that set up tomorrow. And the artist will be here for the community open house. So we'll have him in the lobby. Pete and Cinnamon have put together a little slide that we'll have on the TV there that'll describe the piece, the name of the piece. We're waiting to kind of put the formal signage on there till all the lobby work is done and where we want to locate it. But he'll be there during the community open house to answer any questions of residents. And then we're going to do some other programming with him in the library, you know, do some programs out there for how the fabrication happened and do some interpretive things. So, and Pete's also working on a video, kind of an interview video with him as well, and the construction of the piece. So a lot more to come, but it looks pretty great. Yep, it's all up there.
We'll look forward to all of that. Lots of great things to come. Thank you, Matt, for that additional update. Seeing nothing further, I'm going to adjourn us at 8:03.